Let's bring in Jason Buttrill, who is our chief researcher on the program. You know, I'm reading a lot about John Brennan, and, you know, I think everybody knows he's a bad guy. Well, everybody but MSNBC and CNN. They know he's a bad guy. But, you know, Jason, as I was starting to really refresh my memory and look into Brennan as it looks like maybe the Department of Justice is going to take him on. And maybe prosecute him for some pretty bad perjury. I started looking into him, and I didn't realize, I had completely forgotten, he was the guy who was the main guy that was pushing for torture during the war. He couldn't torture enough people. And then he actually had a little group that would meet with the president, and they would develop the kill list. Do you remember, Stu, talking about the kill list that Obama was doing, you know, every week? They develop a kill list. And it was like, what do you mean a kill list? Who's on the kill list? It was John Brennan that was doing all of that stuff. He's a really, really dark dude. And, you know, hopefully we'll actually send him to jail for the things that he allegedly has done besides, you know, developing a kill list. Jason, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Glenn. It depends on, I don't know. John Brennan has been one of the most slippery. I don't know how to describe him, whether it's like Bond villains or actually maybe it's more accurate to call him like a Batman villain. Because like you remember like in Batman, you know, if like the Joker is like connected to the main in that comic or cartoon, or if it's the Penguin, you know that at the end of the comic, they're going to get away. You're just going to see them in a slide, you know, all of a sudden in a page where they just slip away because they can't be caught. They have to live again, you know, to be the villain in another comic book. That's kind of John Brennan.
I know. And we are playing the role of a Bond villain as well when it comes to justice. Our DOJ is like, and we have sharks that are going to eat you. We've strapped you to this table, but they are going to start with your shoestrings, and then we will leave. But before you know it, you'll be dead in the belly of a shark. And you're like, they're not going to eat the shark. It's not going to kill them. Just shoot them in the head. What are you doing? Stop with the shark thing. That's what our DOJ is like. These guys just get away with murder.
Yeah, and as you point out, with Brennan, it goes way, way back, even before he was confirmed as CIA director. You know, he was one of, as you outlined, he was one of the ones that were like right at the center of the enhanced interrogation or torture controversy. He always said, "Oh, yeah, I was not in the enhanced interrogation techniques," air quoted, program, but he was one of the guys that was, you know, defending transferring some of the suspects to countries where, you know, the rules are a lot less, you know, strict than they are here in the United States, where you can employ some of these. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it goes beyond that. He actually, you know, he withdrew his name, you know, from being in contention to be CIA director because of this. But like any Batman villain or Bond villain, mm-hmm. He decides to run again later in 2013, and he's confirmed by a massive amount. He just keeps on slipping through.
Well, how does let me ask you, how did you think he gets this power? Because he does keep slipping through. And you know, if I remember right, it was Dianne Feinstein that actually came at him and said, "You and the CIA are spying on the committee in the Senate, and they were investigating the torture or enhanced interrogation." And he was knee deep, maybe neck deep in that. And he said, "We're not spying. The CIA would never do that. It's just unthinkable." Well, it turns out, yes, they were spying. And then they never pushed for any kind of penalty on him. He said, "Well, I'm going to find out who did this, and then they're going to pay." Nobody paid. Nothing. Does he have stuff on members of the Senate and the House? Is that what's happening here? How does he keep getting away with this?
Understanding John Brennan, in my opinion, is understanding how the deep state operates. That example that you just put out there with the Senate, you know, spying on the Senate Intelligence Committee, deny. Later, it comes out that, Glenn, 5 CIA employees 5
Yep.
improperly accessed Senate computers. 5. And then finally, after a while, like months later, he's apologizing to the Senate Intelligence Committee, all but admitting this happened, but no resignations, no prosecutions. This goes on and on and on.
Hang on. And then on that same case, 5 years later, he writes his, his biography, and he talks about how none of that happened. So he admits it. First, he denies it.
Incredible.
Then he's caught. Then he admits it. He says, I'm going to take care of it. Nothing happens. Time goes by. And then he writes a book, and he's like, all of that, none of that happened. That was all wrong. This guy is just a Bond villain.
Yeah, it really is. And it's the same with the Steele dossier, denying it in front of Congress. And then, later now that we're coming out saying, oh, well, now we can see that he totally was just, it appears like he was just completely lying. Now we're trying to figure out what he told John Durham, because maybe they can get him for saying the same statements to John Durham. If they can, then maybe we can go after him. But I really don't know. I don't know if the audience really wants to hear this right now. But I don't know if it'll make a difference. This is how the deep state operates, and to understand it and to understand John Brennan, you understand that the executive does not really control deep state apparatuses. That's not how it works. You have multiple people, and people that were under John Brennan and the CIA are still there. They're still there. The deep state controls the deep state apparatus, not the executive, not Congress, none of them. It is these shady individuals that continue to get away with things. We catch them in lies. It never really matters. I think that if we could actually get some justice on this, if John Brennan can actually, get, outed publicly like he has in the past, but this time something actually happened, then I think that would be a huge step forward in getting rid of some of these people that just linger and secretly pull strings while we're demanding justice.
So tell me what happened with the ICA, the new report out about the intelligence community assessment. What is this story all about?
Yeah, it's a tradecraft. It's a CIA tradecraft review, and it looks.
What does that mean? A tradecraft review?
It's kind of a sexy way of just saying how did we, operate, from this time to this time period, and it points out, how things like it pointed out in part of it how things like the Steele dossier ended up getting included into the whole Russiagate scandal. And it looks very, very clear that, that should not have, unverified intelligence should not have gotten as far as the president's desk. It should not have done it. And even if it had, then it should have been, heavily caveated, showing that this is just opposition research bullcrap. Well, it didn't. And if you look at it very, very specifically, it shows that, if you are, let's say, a Bond villain or a Batman villain, and you really, really want this damaging information that's just opposition research to somehow make it into the halls of the White House, and then knowing that that's going to get leaked down to the media, they perfected, the CIA has perfected this kind of operation. They know exactly what they're doing. Who would be responsible for doing it? Why would they be doing it? And it would be for election interference. And then that's allegedly what John Brennan was actually doing. That's what it looks like he was doing. So now we've even got, the intelligence community's assessment showing that this is probably what happened. With that information, and with now being able to go back to people like John Durham or looking exactly what statements were made to him so that we can fit them into the statute of limitations or before it runs out.
Which is in the middle of August, which really pisses me off. It's another thing like the debt ceiling. Oh, we've had all these years to fix it, but now we got to fix it tonight, and then it's never fixed. I mean, I'm telling you, this is not going to be good. This Epstein thing is not going to go away. It's just not going to go away. And I'm sorry, but I think the president is on the wrong side on this. And I'm not assigning any kind of reason for it, but he wants it just to go away. And I have my belief. I expressed them yesterday. It's about Intel again. But you can't keep stacking these things up. You just can't. John Brennan is a known bad guy. Russiagate, you would think that Donald Trump would be all over this because it affected his life so much. This guy is a very, very, very bad guy, and both sides of the aisle know it. And for some reason, nobody can ever do anything about John Brennan. He's got to be investigated and prosecuted if that's where the evidence leads. But you can't just walk away. If the statute of limitations runs out on this guy, I think you got another chink in the armor, a big one.
Yeah, and not just him. I mean, I would go a lot further and say, who were the people that were directly underneath him? Who were his subordinates? Who were their subordinates? How many of them had knowledge of this? Because what we're really talking about is, this is how the deep state operates. This is how things happen, outside, the wishes of the president, the executive, or even Congress. This is how, this is how justice and how operations work, from people that are not elected, people that we did not give a mandate to. This is how this operates. You have to root out every single one of them, identify them, have them stand in front of justice, and see if we can just finally start to whittle this thing away. If we do not, then the future does not look great for what we want for this country.
Oh, and it's everywhere. Kevin O'Connor, he's the White House physician for Biden. The testimony that he gave, man. Well, fine. Give him immunity. Give him immunity. I don't want to know about the private conversations about his health. Although I think that is really important. We're talking about the president of the United States. He's not just a private citizen. He's proper. The president can't say, if the Secret Service says, "Sir, you're not going in that room," the president no longer has the right to say, "I'm going in that room." Sorry. While you're president, it's almost as if you're property of the United States of America, and you don't have control over your own person in many ways. I'm sorry, but the physician-client or physician-patient confidentiality, I'm not sure that exists when you're president of the United States. But there's no reason why you shouldn't give this guy immunity and then say, okay, who said what? Were you ever told to lie? I'm not sure you're going to get the truth out of this guy because he's a Biden guy through and through. But people should start going to jail on that. I'm so sick and tired of these investigations that start to show promise and then nothing happens. Nothing. It's been 20 years of investigations and no one goes to jail. It's been 20 years of riots on the streets, people burning cities down, people, looting stores, destroying our economy, destroying the safety in our city, and no one goes to jail. President Trump has got to start sending some big, big messages, and he is on so many fronts, but this one cannot escape his view. He's got to be on this one. All right, Jason, thank you very much.